board. There we go. And then let me go ahead and start presenting. Share screen. Here we go. Okay. All right, and let me know if this is coming through okay. Hopefully you just have the agenda up there and not my other 18,000 windows I have open on my second monitor.
Yes, we are checking the agenda.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll start out just with sort of like an initial icebreaker that we've been kind of doing a little bit through the chat. And then we will proceed to a brief overview of the company, which some of you probably already will be familiar with it because you are a part of it already, or you saw a little bit of this during the volunteer interest meeting, but we just wanted to kind of outline it so that way you understand how we're structured. And then we'll get to know each other through breakout rooms so that you can just share a little bit more about what your experience is. And if you're excited and things you're nervous about, and just kind of get yourself comfortable with the mentor role that you're about to be taking on. Part 2 will cover the actual class overview as far as how students progress through the classes that we offer, information about our curriculum, where to find that, class tools, mentor tools to be able to help with resources to provide students with, that kind of a thing, and just give a general overview of the mentoring job. And then we'll take a little bit of a bio break if anybody needs to take a few minutes there in the middle. I'm hoping we'll get everything done in about an hour and 15. Based on our small numbers. And then we'll proceed on hearing from some past mentors and some mentoring details as far as what your individual sessions will look like, common issues that come up, roles and expectations, and of course any advice and things to be aware of or be prepared with before you start. And then we'll have 10 or 15 minutes at the end for any kind of questions that come up that we can answer for you. And then at the tail end, then we'll just remind you of next steps as far as the different credentials you'll need for logging into different resources and just kind of wrap things up from there. All right, any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to reorder my chat a little bit so I can see if anybody needs to hop on with any questions in the chat. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. Feel free to scroll through your chat to be able to do our icebreaker, or you can unmute and share a little bit about your favorite game or where you're from, or things that you're most excited about for the mentor role that's coming up. Laura, you've got the classic Pac-Man, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mary Alice, people who come on the...
Yeah, I gotta go. I'm gonna have to participate in this.
People who come on the meeting after you've posted won't be able to see the prompt. So okay. I can copy and paste that in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you all for bearing with me. This is, I think, my second Zoom call that I've had to host and do any kind of like polls and postings and whiteboards and all these fun features that are a new realm of adventures.
So welcome, Seamus. I just muted you. Sorry about that. We were having a loud background noise. So.
Oh no, that's totally my bad. Sorry. Hey everyone. Just got back.
All right. Well, yeah, because there are so many of us on right now, I think it'll take too much time to go all the way around. So yeah, just keep posting in the chat and maybe we can just keep moving. Oh, Octavio has discovered all kinds of fancy add-ons there. Filters, I guess. It's kind of fun. Okay. But yeah, why don't we keep going, Mary Alice?
Okay, sounds good. All right. So getting started, we've got a little bit of background about the company. The organizations are the classes that we'll be doing are Red Eel, Egret, and Red Star. Red just is our way of indicating that it's starting in 2020 for us to be able to track classes and students' progression through those classes. Eel is our back-end Ruby on Rails course. Egret is our front-end React course. And then Star is our Intro to Programming course. All of these classes start in August. EL and Egret will start August 11th, and STAR will start August 25th. For Code the Dream, we have a win-win-win setup situation. So students that are from under-resourced backgrounds and diverse backgrounds, low-income backgrounds, have an opportunity to be able to take a free course or courses to be able to get them educated and up and running to be employable in the tech industry, specifically in web development, in either front end or back end, depending on which route they go for advanced classes. And then the other aspect of Code the Dream is we have a dev shop. So as students work their way through the classes and then graduate out of the advanced classes, they have the opportunity to apply for an apprenticeship, a paid internship with us, where they come on board our dev shop, where we have applications, web technologies that we are building for local nonprofits, government organizations, and the community around us, so that we can help contribute to a better world. And we'll be talking a little bit more about some of the apps that we've built, just to give you an idea of what our modus operandi is, or what our whole drive is for helping to improve our communities. And then the last win is for the tech industry in general, as they start to get a larger, more diverse population of some really talented individuals that otherwise might not have been introduced to it if they didn't have a foot in the door with a free class. So that's the trifecta that we're going for a win-win-win. If at any point I'm talking too fast or y'all have questions, feel free to unmute and jump in with questions, or fire them off in the chat, by the way, so that way I can address those as we're going along. Okay. So Lori, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about a couple of the projects that we've done, because I've only worked on one or two of them. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. So these are just some examples. And again, some of you might have seen this in our volunteer interest meeting, but in our dev shop, Code the Dream Labs, we build all kinds of projects, primarily those that have some sort of positive social impact. And these are some of the examples. You can see many more at codethedream.org/portfolio. Some of the apps that we're currently working on include one that is specifically designed for organizations that do outreach to migrant and seasonal farm workers. We have, that's actually our first app to go national. We have organizations in 5 different states that are currently using that app. We have done some really cool arts related apps, working with the North Carolina Museum of Art, including an AR app for some murals in downtown Durham, as well as right now we're working on another cool project with the Museum of Art that allows you to draw on a tablet that will then be projected up onto famous works of art. So you can see it really big, which is kind of cool. We've done a couple different projects with some Coalition Against Domestic Violence organizations, including some online training resources. So those are just some examples of some of the work that we do in our dev shop.
And we've had a lot of growth since just even a few years ago. So this kind of gives you an idea of some of the statistics of where we've come to in 2020. And I think, Lori, if you don't mind sharing a little bit more details, I can go over the class profiles section because I'm familiar with all that data.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just gives you some of the idea of the impact and how we've grown and what Code the Dream looks like right now. We do have 18 full and part-time staff, I think. That includes part-time as well. 28 current apprentices in Code the Dream Labs. We're working on, I think, 24 apps and web technologies, including websites, that we've worked on over the last year. There were 4 different apps related to COVID-19 that we were working on, and certainly over 50,000 now people impacted by Code the Dream created apps. And I can go over the general class stats if you want to do the more specific ones, Mary Alice.
Yeah.
In this actually might have been 2020.
I think so. I wasn't sure where to pull the information for the mentor sessions, but
yeah,
since we just finished up 2 16-week classes, then I'm sure that 800 figure is a little bit bigger now.
I'm sure it's higher, yes. But there was when I did these stats for 2020, I was honestly kind of amazed. I was like, wait, 800 mentor sessions. That's amazing. So yeah, this is, as you may have heard if you were in our volunteer meeting, so much of our work is driven by volunteers, in particular our classes. So we really, really rely on you all and folks like you who are software development professionals and seeking to impart your knowledge and skills to support others. And yeah, we had over 3,000 volunteer hours in 2020, over 800 mentor sessions. And of course, when we talk about mentor sessions, we're talking about small group work. So that there's even, many more students impacted by that. We had over 50 class mentors in 2020. This year, I think we already have had nearly 50, if not more already this year. 12 states where co-dream participants are located, and we can only accept about 20% of the applicants to our classes. So it is a kind of coveted slot, especially since we went national and, we started in North Carolina in 2018. And at the end of 2019 is when we had our first all remote and national class drawing from students all over the country. And so there's just a huge demand. So we're very grateful for you all.
Yeah, and since one of our main focuses is diversity, I'm always fascinated by the class data that we have as far as what the statistics are like for the students. So in this next group of classes, just starting in August, it's 64 students that we'll have total among those three, but we've had several more than that, obviously, in classes that have been completed already in 2021. 83% of that group is people of color. 58% are women or non-binary, 94% of them are low income, and that number really drives home the importance of them having access to these free classes. Average age is about 36, with the youngest being 17 and the oldest being 65. So we do get a range there, but the majority of the folks tend to fall in 25 to 35, 40 age range for the most part. And 13 states where the students live. In the past 2 classes that we had just finish up, we actually had a few students that had to move to other countries while the class was going on. So we're kind of technically international with our students now too, a little bit. But that just gives you an idea of background and the types of populations that we're trying to reach, to really help provide them with what they need to be able to build those tech skills and get that dev job. Okay, so let's moving on. So this part we'll hold off on, right, Lori? Just since we have such a number of you all and we don't want to suck up your entire Monday evening. But feel free to use the chat to be able to get in touch with each other for anybody that has interesting similar interests and or interesting locations that you'd like to chat a little bit more to each other about. And you'll probably get to know each other a little bit as well. One of the Slack channels that we set up is mentor specific, so that way you can communicate with one another as far as anything going on with students, as well as just kind of network with each other if you need any assistance for session coverage and or for questions that have been brought to you by students that maybe you're not sure how to handle or anything along those lines. We want to be able to give you a good framework of support to lean on if you have anything that comes up that you need assistance with. Okay, so Lori, if you wouldn't mind going over the student path to give the description of sort of start to finish what happens with students and our process for accepting and channeling them through.
Absolutely. So, yes, this just kind of gives you a sense of things. We get a lot of applications and students must demonstrate some competency before they are even allowed in the class, and by doing kind of a pre-work, both for the intro class and as well as for our Rails or React classes. Once their students are admitted into the class, then I'll go over all of those things, the different components of the class in a moment. But then the classes, each leg of our classes, I guess, lasts approximately 4 months. So the intro class is 16 weeks, the Rails class is 16 weeks, the React class is 16 weeks. If a student successfully completes the intro class, then and completes, including presents their final project, they are eligible to go on to the React or Rails class. And in some cases, we do have students come directly into the Rails or React class if they can demonstrate some mastery of those initial basic skills. Following the classes, we will take a very small percentage of class graduates on to Code the Dream Labs apprenticeship program. We also have a practicum program that is designed to give students some practical experience working in a team, because our classes do not really cover group work. So that's sort of an important aspect that they're kind of missing through the classes right now. That is something we may be incorporating in future classes, but right now the practicum is still a very important way that they can gain those group skills following the classes. And of course, at any time, students and apprentices, and the apprenticeship is approximately 1 year long. And after that, students will go on to software development job. But of course, there are students before they even become apprentices who sometimes get jobs. We have a number of students who have been applying immediately after the Rails or React classes and do get jobs as well. In terms of what happens in the classes, there are several different aspects of the class. And I don't know, yeah, okay, we did go over this later, but just you all are hitting this from the mentor session aspect, which is really the most critical part of the class. We have a silly little acronym that we call MASCOF that represents all of the different aspects of our classes, which we'll be going through one by one. But that the mentor part is really the most critical, I think. So we have the mentor part, the materials and the videos that the students are given, the weekly assignments, the Slack channel where all of the community conversation happens, as well as the final projects, which make up a big part of their experience as well. But I think we can go on from there.
So for a curriculum overview, all of our curriculums available at learn.codethedream.org, and then you would select the appropriate class from there. The curriculum for those particular classes has not been published on the website yet, just because we wait until right before student orientation to get that up and running. But we do have previous courses on there. Particularly, we have Red Comet and Red Eclipse, which are synonymous with the Red Star class, if you wanted to take a look to see what the intro to programming curriculum's been like. And then we have Red Koi, which is comparable to EEL. For Red Egret, we're actually reframing and restructuring our curriculum for that currently. So previously we were using Treehouse videos, but our senior developers have discovered that Treehouse videos, while they're very good, there are gaps in what is disseminated to the students, what the students are able to learn. And they are going to be going with Road to React as their primary lesson to be able to give a little bit more information and fill where Treehouse had those gaps at. But if you'd like to take a look at Koi or at Eclipse or Comet to be able to see what the Rails and the intro curriculum has been like up to that point, then feel free to go to learn.codethedream.org to be able to kind of preview that.
And just FYI, if you have questions about the React curriculum, Jared actually may be able to answer them because he's been part of that curriculum development team.
Yep, exactly. So the courses are 16 weeks. The Egret and EEL courses, the advanced classes that are in React and Ruby on Rails, will start August 11th. Red Star starts August 25th. So they'll be ending ballpark like around December of 2021, roughly. And all of the courses culminate in a final project. So the last 2 to 3 weeks of each of the 3 types of classes, there is a final project that they really kind of hone all of the skills that they've learned over the 16 weeks and implement them in some type of sample product. So for Rails, it would be, implementing something that has server-side data that you're pulling, and they have the option to like deploy it through Heroku. For Egret, then they would build something in React that would function with all of the components and hooks there. And then Star, they build just a basic portfolio website to kind of showcase their HTML, CSS, and JavaScript skills that they've learned. And they do incorporate an API call as well, just to kind of get their feet wet in that material as well before they start really handling transfers of data between front and back in an advanced class. They can use their preferred code editor. So we've had students use Dreamweaver, Visual Studio Code, and several other different types of IDEs, but the majority of the work is done, handled via GitHub. So their assignments, they'll fork or pull down their repository with the assignment, work on that in whatever code editor they want, and then submit a link to their GitHub repo where they have their work that they've completed so that assignment reviewers can take a look and review. Intro to Programming, the STAR class covers programming fundamentals, so your JavaScript loops and if and else statements, all those kinds of fun things. Get basics, so that way they know how to push and pull, what a repo is, how to structure their files. Web basics, so HTML, CSS, JS, and then DOM manipulation, as well as Ajax basics when they use that API call in their final project to be able to incorporate that. The React Egret class is going to focus on React skills and build on the skills that they learned in that Intro to Programming. So a lot of the things that they'll be learning in that course are API fetches, components, hooks, state, asynchronous data, that kind of fun adventures. And then Ruby on Rails, the EL course focuses on SQL, Ruby, test first development, Rails, and then API calls using Ajax. So it just kind of gives you a quick brief overview of sort of some of the material that's covered in each of those 3 types of classes. Intro to Programming graduates proceed to an advanced class of their preference, as long as their final project shows that they are that they've handled all of the knowledge in the intro class and are prepared to be able to take the next step into that advanced class. And then advanced graduates proceed to either the practicum or the apprenticeship based again on their final project presentation and sort of what their level is like. All right. So as Lori was talking about earlier, MaskOff is kind of our little fun little abbreviation to kind of cover the elements of the class. So instructional materials, which are going to be Treehouse videos for intro and for Rails. Since Road to React does not have video tutorials or video work alongside for their material, then there won't be that element to the React class, but they will have lessons that they'll read through and sort of coding assignments to help them understand and wrap their heads around that topic for the week. And then assignments is the A, and that is the GitHub assignment. In most cases, the first 6 weeks of intro, it's a replit, so they don't have to handle GitHub quite so early on. Their main focus for the first 6 weeks of intro is just to get all those JavaScript basics down and kind of understand how to write in JavaScript. The assignments, though, typically are on GitHub. They pull it down, they work it, and then they submit their links to their completed assignment. Mentor sessions, which is, I feel like Lori was saying, the biggest and most key element of the class is that opportunity for them to be able to meet with an experienced developer, you all, to be able to ask the questions that they have about the materials that they were seeing, as well as they were working through their assignments, any hiccups that they might have run into or issues. And mentor sessions, we encourage students to sign up for 2 a week. Some might sign up for 1, some might sign up for multiple. I've seen a couple of times where there's like 3 or the same name is on the schedule 3 or 4 times to be able to cover plenty of mentor sessions. So you may see some familiar faces, but it all depends on students' schedule and availability as far as what session they sign up for. So you may have some changing faces between your sessions as well. Community. So Slack channel is the primary method that we have for them to be able to develop a sense of community. It's hard to kind of develop that and instill that in a group that's remote, but we do our best to be able to encourage them to work together, ask other students, how did you approach this problem? Where can I go? Or what are good resources that you used when you stumbled on this issue? So we really try and foster a good community among the students through those Slack channels. And then the final project aspect is sort of the culmination of the entire course for them to be able to really showcase everything that they've learned over the 16 weeks. And it's really impressive to see some of the growth that they've had between what they had submitted as like a pre-work project that they did to be able to be considered for the class. And then you compare it to where they are with their final project. And it's really amazing to see the growth in some of those students. So moving on to an advanced class, practicum, or apprenticeship will depend on them participating during the class. So they can't just, hop on a call and ignore you for the hour of the mentor session just to check a box. We do like them to be actively participating, whether it's helping other students if they're already advanced on the material or feel comfortable with the material, or if they're asking questions, if it's something that they need to understand a little bit better. Their coding ability, of course, is a factor. And then dedication and persistence. A lot of these students have multiple things going on in their lives, being from low income backgrounds, they're working multiple jobs and trying to juggle this course with everything else that's going on in what can be an unstable life situation. So the fact that they are really, hunkering down and working hard to get through it is a key factor that will make them extremely successful in the long run, but also help them succeed in all of these early stages where they really need to kind of build their fundamentals of programming and understanding that material. Their final projects weigh into it as well. And then, of course, funding and the number of spots that we have available in those apprenticeship and practicum programs and in the advanced classes will determine whether or not they can proceed on to the next leg of their journey with us. Okay, so class tools. The primary class tools that'll be used are going to be the class website, learn.codethedream.org. That's where they have their class calendar, and links to their assignments for each week will be there as well. The calendar just outlines that the week starts on Wednesday. It provides the Wednesday date. The lessons should be turned in by midnight on Tuesday. It has the Tuesday date, and then it'll have the link to whatever their assignment is that outlines, here's where you go. This is what you need to have done. These are the materials that you need to cover for this week, so on and so forth. Mentor resources. This section of our site is password protected. We will be giving you the information to be able to log in and get that information, but it just helps give you some information that you might need, as well as examples of how some of the assignments have been solved, because obviously there are different ways of coding that you can write things a couple different ways and still get the same end results. So it's just a nice way to be able to provide you with some helpful tools, both to see some of the variants on what kind of answers can be provided or other solutions to some of the assignment questions. And then, of course, just resources that you can help direct students to as well.
Mary Alice, we can go ahead and tell you that password. It's not a problem. We just don't try not to put it anywhere where students have access to it.
I think we have it on the very last slide, so that way, yeah. I was like, it is shared with you later on. It's just since we're covering information, then I don't think we included it in that part, but it should be at the end there for you. Treehouse videos for the intro and the Rails courses is teamtreehouse.com, and then we have it's just the one login, correct, Lori, that everybody can use to be able to log in to access those, and we'll have those credentials provided to you as well, so that way you can look in and review and see what the students are seeing that week if you want to. GitHub obviously is used in all of the classes pretty extensively. Intro, not until the 6th or 7th week is when they jump into that. Squibby is a Slack bot that we have built in Slack so that students can just go to their Slack app and submit their work that way, and they don't have to go to like a separate Google form or an Airtable form. They can just go into Squibby and select, this is the assignment I'm turning in for, here's my link to my repo, here's my name, here are any notes that I have about, oh, I had a question about this, could somebody follow up with me on it? One thing I want to note, mentors are not required to do any of the assignment review. We can set up completely separate, and we do set up completely separate assignment reviewers, just because it has a different structure for availability for volunteers. Some people prefer to mentor because it's the 1 to 2 hours a week. Assignment review is comparable time, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how many students that you have that you're reviewing for. So if you feel like you also want to be an assignment reviewer for the class that you're mentoring for, that's perfectly fine. You can let me know and I'll include you in the list. We try and have it about 2 to 3 students roughly per assignment reviewer so that nobody gets terribly overwhelmed. But just want to make you aware that even though you're mentoring these students, you might not be seeing what their assignments are like other than when they bring them to you in the mentor session with questions. So I just wanted to mention that while we're on the topic of submitting their homework. Slack channels that we have for each course or for each class. So the class name will be preceding the channel name, but there's one for just general announcements where we'll post the mentor sign up sheets for students to be able to sign up whose mentor sessions they're going to that week. A discussion, so that way if they have questions they can just post it there and other students and mentors can see the questions they post and kind of help out with suggestions or information or resources. And then there's the mentors channel, like I'd mentioned earlier, where it's strictly just among mentors. Students aren't on that channel, so that way you can either coordinate if you want to swap mentor sessions, or if you want to talk to other mentors about, hey, I had a student turn in this or ask me this question. How did you answer it? Marwa had a question that just popped up. Can students go to different mentor sessions or is each student given one mentor? Excellent question. Students are not assigned a particular mentor. So what we do is we have you let us know what is best for what are the best times during the week for your mentor sessions. We post that schedule and offer it to the students so the students can look and see what mentor sessions are available for the week and sign up for what fits for their schedule. So it's kind of just a way to be able to marry those two schedules together in a forum for them to be able to figure out what avenue is going to be best for everybody's time is the best way to describe it.
I think what we found is that most students will often go to the same mentor sessions every week, but when we assigned mentors to specific students, it got too complicated when a mentor had to cancel and students didn't know when other sessions were. So we leave it a little bit more open-ended so that each week they can sign up for different ones if they want. And we actually encourage them to try out different mentors because everybody has a different style, and someone may find, a style that they really connect with over another, and that's no problem, that's fine. But I think what we've seen is that students typically will eventually sort of get into a rhythm of which ones they go to, but at the beginning of the week, everyone can see when, all of the different availabilities.
Yep, exactly. And if you have any changes that you need to make from your normal, like if you say, oh, I'm always available Wednesdays at 6 p.m., then just make me aware of it in far enough advance that I can notate that on the schedule. We publish the schedules to the students on Sunday night, Monday morning. So that way they have a couple of days to be able to schedule before they jump into a session, since our weeks start on Wednesday. So just share that information with me. Or if you have something come up too, we've had instances where there's been a family situation and so they needed to discontinue for a couple of weeks. And so, let me know so that way I can be sure to find a substitute so that students who are really needing and benefiting from the mentor sessions don't all of a sudden have like 5 or 6 sessions a week available to them when they were used to having 10 or 15. So please just be very communicative with me as far as what you need and what's going on with your schedule. But ideally you pick out what hour or hours during the week you want to have your mentor sessions at, and we just stick with those for offerings for the students, and then the students can sign up in whatever slots work for their time for the week. And then the last class tool is Airtable. That's where all of the assignment submissions get dumped, and it's where we track student progress. So I'll log in weekly just to check and make sure that we don't have students falling behind. If we do, then I'm the one who gets in touch with them to be able to check and see what's going on and see if there's any supplemental support that myself or the Code the Dream can offer them to help get them back on track. But Airtable is just our database that we use for being able to track student progress, keep track of assignment submissions, keep track of when they've attended mentor sessions as well. So the mentor session reporting form, sorry, I skipped over that somehow. Mentor session reporting form at the end of your mentor session, then you'll just use the link here, tinycc/CTD mentor report, to be able to basically turn in the attendance, as well as just give a brief account of, this is what we worked on today, as far as, this person was struggling with this JavaScript concept, or, this person needed help with their CSS, or whatever the case may be. But the key thing is to be able to take tally of attendance, so that way we can make sure that students are attending and they are proactively involved in their learning. And Zoom is the forum that we have for all of those mentor sessions. So we have one Zoom account per class. And then since mentor sessions will be staggered, you won't have two mentors having a session simultaneously. Then you would just take turns using that Zoom account channel to be able to host the mentor session for when you're holding your mentor session. And that way the link is the same for all of the students. They just have to have the one link available to them, and they can click on that regardless of who's mentoring that session. Okay, so let me go ahead and continue on. Does anybody need a break, a 5-minute break or anything? Are we doing okay? Good. Okay, looks like we're doing good, so we'll keep on keeping on. So the mentor sessions, it's approximately one mentor for every 3 students in the class. The mentor sessions are spaced throughout the week. Usually they're on evenings, but the weekday sessions are okay as well. But the time and day that your mentor session occurs is up to you. So you choose your time and you just let us know what works. If we do have, 5 of you all signing up for Friday at 7 o'clock, then we can discuss that if that situation arises, as far as which route to go, if anybody wants to move it up a little or move it back a little or pick a different day, because it's obviously not beneficial to have all 15 mentor sessions of a week happen in a 3-hour time span on a Friday. So we want to make sure that they're spaced out throughout the week so that students can sign up for ones that accommodate their schedule. Each mentor holds 1 to 2 sessions per week. Students are expected to attend at least 2 sessions per week, and they can pick any 2. It does not have to be with the same mentor, as we had talked about earlier. And just a reminder, as I had said on the previous page, when you finish your mentor session, you'll fill out a short form after each one, so that way the student gets credit for attending. And then there's also just notes in there for us to be able to help track student progress. If anybody's struggling or doing well, that kind of a thing, you can include that feedback in that form as well. So during your mentor session, if you're intending to have your session on a Wednesday or a Thursday night, your mentor session will be a little bit different than if it was on another day of the week. What we've discovered from student feedback is if you're doing a Wednesday or a Thursday, it would be a little bit better to preview the upcoming week's assignment. So just kind of walk through what the week is covering and what will be asked of them in the assignment, and help clarify if they have any questions like, oh, well, it says, to map through an array, do they want the results alphabetically? Do they want it reverse alphabetical? That kind of a thing. If they have any questions along those lines, and it's a way to kind of help comb those questions out. You can review the previous week's assignments. So if they have any feedback that they've been given to them from the assignment reviewer, then they can come to you with their questions as far as, hey, they told me I did this part wrong, but it was functional. So why is this wrong? Let's talk about that. And just answer any questions in general that they might have on either the previous week or the upcoming week. But for the other days of the week, you'll mostly be working on that current week. So assist with any blockers they're having during the week's assignment, answer any questions. You can do programming demonstration or pair programming, so that way you can kind of work alongside together and really think through the logic of why you'd want to write your code a certain way to be able to achieve what you're supposed to complete the assignment, as well as to understand the concept of really what your code is doing. At the bottom here, I've got report your session time schedule here. There is a clickable link there. And I'll be sharing the slides with you as well, so it'll be accessible that way after we're done with our session tonight. So that way you can just jump to a spreadsheet and you can go ahead and fill out the day and the time that you're preferring to do. I don't have all of the class assignments in that document yet because those were determined after I was able to get the basic framework set up, but some of them do already have the class assignments by your name in there, but it's just a spreadsheet alphabetical by first name, and you can plop in there as far as what day you want and what time. Thank you, yes, for signing up for your mentor schedule. That link is available in the chat for you now as well. All right.
Just
Yeah.
real quick, it says I need access to the Google Sheets that was just posted.
Oh, yes, thank you.
I'll fix that, Mary Alice.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was like, that's right, I'm on a private drive, so I'm probably going to have a whole flood of people asking for permission, but
Yeah, it's such a pain. It happens to me every
yeah.
single time because you have to go in and click a thing.
Yeah. Okay, so we can go ahead and take a little break. Feel free to fire any questions off if you want to while we're in the break, or else just, take a breather, take a bathroom break, a water break, whatever you need for a few minutes, and then we'll get back together about 8:20 current time. So just
Mary Alice, I would suggest that we try to keep it to 3 minutes. Just we still have a lot of material
sure.
to cover. So.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. So I'll just do a brief little break and come back in a few. Let me pull that over to here. There we go.
Quick question: which session is which? Like on the doc that we're all probably clicking on right now?
Yeah, I've got a column for session 1 and a column for session 2. That's just if you want to have 2 sessions, then you can fill out both columns. If you're only available to do 1 session a week, then just fill out the first.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Sorry, I probably should have done like session number 1, session number 2 instead of session 1, session 2. But
No, you're good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just 1 more minute and then we'll hop back in. Okay, everybody good to pick up where we left off? All right. Let's see here, a couple of questions that we can address quickly. Yes, mentor sessions are going through concepts, practicing, and then answering any questions that they have about the assignment as well. What's the limit of helping them for upcoming assignments otherwise? Obviously, they need to be doing their own coding. It's a great question, but it's one of those kind of case-by-case basis. As far as, what's the limit of helping them? So all of the code they should be writing themselves. Usually when I had been mentoring the intro class, then I had approached it from a, think about this concept outside of just the lines of code. Like if you had a physical piece of data that you needed to work with, you know, a vehicle that you had to keep track of the type of car, tires that were on the car, the type of gas that was going on the car, that kind of a thing. How to work with whatever the overarching idea is, as well as kind of pointing them in the right direction. So if they're, you know, stumbling on like an if else statement, then provide them with some resources that might rephrase how that is structured and how that works, so that way they can have another angle to come at it from, to kind of wrap their head around, okay, how do I need to structure it? Why do I need to structure it that way? And what happens if I do it wrong? Well, like what is the code doing, is the best way I can answer that. I hope it helped a little bit, Marwa. So number of students per session, typically there's like 8 at the max. Usually it's more like 3 to 5 students per session, it seems like. And obviously that can vary some. Some nights are just more popular than others. So it depends, but we typically cap it off at 8. If the mentor wants to allow more than 8 students per session, then that's perfectly fine. It's, you know, sort of mentor's judgment about if they want to say, hey, you know, these 2 people signed up too late and I can't really accommodate more than 8 students. Do you mind signing up for another night? So you would just reach out to them as you take a look at your schedule if you've got more on there than you think you can cover the material with in the course of an hour. I hope that helps answer your questions, Marwa. Yeah, okay, great. Okay. All right, so let's keep on rolling. Oh, things to keep in mind as you're mentoring are, you know, what were some of the things that were helpful to you when you were learning how to code? What makes for a good mentoring or small group experience online, as far as ways that you can keep them engaged with each other or engaged with the material that you're presenting? And then what's worked well for you other times when you've been teaching someone else programming. So if you've, you know, been helping a new colleague understand, you know, how you're structuring your code, or explaining to somebody that's replacing you, you know, oh, this is how I set this up and this is why we did it this way. So concepts like that are things that are good to keep in mind when you're doing your mentoring. Okay, so a sample mentor session outline. Check in, take attendance, and just check in to see where they're at. Have they started the have they started the assignment for the week? Have they not even looked at it yet? Are they in the process of it? Are they finished? As well as, you know, how are they feeling in general? If they're really struggling to wrap their head around the concepts, or if they feel like they're not being challenged enough and feel comfortable working ahead, that kind of a situation. Progress poll also would achieve that during your check-in. Review the main learning concepts. So, you know, this week we're covering, you know, JavaScript arrays. This is what an array is. This is why it's structured this way. This is the kind of data that you'd be using in an array. You know, giving real world examples of what they're encountering as well is helpful. Questions from videos. So for intro and for Rails, if they have any questions from the Treehouse videos. For React, if they have any questions from the Road to React material, you can ask them for anything that came up while they were doing the instructional material portion of Mask Off. And then assignment review, so you can take a look at what they've written so far, screen share or pair programming, kind of have them break out and look at each other's code to see, oh, you did it this way, why did you do it this way? Or, you know, kind of compare notes as far as how they approached the assignment and how they came about their solutions. And then of course, asking if they have any additional questions. Sometimes students are just curious what it's like to have a dev job and want to talk about that a little bit sometimes in the mentor sessions, especially as it gets closer to the end of their course. Don't forget to fill out the report form after the mentor session so that students can get credit for having attended. Let me just have the link as a reminder there yet again. Okay, moving on. So some of the common issues that come up as you're mentoring is keeping students focused on the current week. Some will get sort of tunnel vision and anxiety about their final project, but they can't check all the boxes in the rubric of their final project if they aren't learning the material for each week as it goes along. So it's important for them to be able to, focus on the current week's assignment and really grasp that concept well before they move on, especially in the advanced classes. A lot of the material builds on what you've learned in previous weeks. So if they aren't focusing and getting comfortable with the material each week, then as they move along, it'll be harder and harder for them to kind of catch up and understand what's going on later in the course. Beginning of week versus end of week, we had talked about that a little bit, that Wednesdays, Thursdays, you won't have a lot of students in your mentor session that have taken on the assignment for the week yet. They might not have even gotten a chance to open up and take a look to see what the topic is. So it's good to be able to introduce them to, this is what the assignment's going to be this week, as well as cover any review from the previous week potentially. If no one has done the assignment, then you're welcome to cover a topic that's going to be covered that week. You can even kind of approach it in a different way, like, hey, I built this really cool app one time, and you're learning about React hooks this week, and this is how we implemented that and what it was doing, and kind of introduce them to concepts that way. Some people are way ahead of others, and some people are way behind. And that can happen in your mentor session. Sometimes it's helpful to have the folks that are way ahead do that sort of pair programming or help instruct the ones that are behind, help lend a hand to each other as far as getting a more even footing, and helping folks catch up without boring the students that are already advanced or already ahead. It can help reinforce the lessons if they try and demonstrate it to others that are trying to catch up. If no one has anything to say at all, and maybe you only have 1 or 2 students in it, and they're like, yeah, I'm here, but I don't really have anything to cover, then you can obviously use prompts. You can get to know the students a little bit more. You can talk about other development jobs, or what it was like for you getting into an entry-level development job, things of that nature. And then of course keep them focused on the current week. So you can say, hey, this is what we're learning this week. Let's talk about it. What would be some ways that you would want to implement it if you were building your own project, kind of a thing, and sort of get them imagining outside the box as well. And then how to submit assignments is through Squibby. I think, Lori, do we have a tutorial that we share with students so that way they see? I feel like John made one for Rails class.
Yeah, Elliot also made an amazing one. Elliot is an amazing volunteer who is on our curriculum development team. Has also mentored himself many times. And yes, there is a good tutorial on that. But especially if you're mentoring for the intro class, people are still gonna ask you. And
yes. And the key part is they need to know what class they are in. We did have 2 intro classes running simultaneously, and for a few weeks there we had people submitting to the wrong intro class. So help reinforce.
That might have been our fault, though. I don't know.
A little. So any other ideas as far as issues that arise, then there's mentor resources, or of course you can always reach out to myself. You can reach out to other mentors that are in your class that have already mentored for us before. Lori, you can, if any issue arises, just don't be silent about it. Reach out if there's anything that you need help with. Okay, moving along. So the role of Code the Dream is to set the curriculum, videos, assignments, communicate with the mentors and students about timeline assignments, materials, creating all the supplemental learning materials. So those GitHub repos where their assignments are housed, and the instruction that goes along with it. Pairing those treehouse exercises with the material that they'll be teaching, or the material that you'll be teaching and they'll be learning, and the assignment for that week. Design and assess practicums and final projects. Tracking student progress, and then of course determining where the students go after they've completed their course is the main roles and responsibilities for us. Students are expected to cover their instructional material, code alongside them, make sure that they're absorbing the information the way they ought to, and really tackling it with persistence. They have to complete their coding assignment and submit, and then they have to attend at least 2 mentor sessions a week. We estimate that students usually spend about 15 to 20 hours a week on Code the Dream classes. Moving along. So expectations for mentors is to host an hour-long meeting through Zoom 1 or 2 times a week. Approximately 1 to 5 students will join each session, not necessarily the same ones each time as we had talked about, although often students do attend the same ones each time. Be sure to fill out the form afterwards so that the student gets credit for attending. Arrange coverage if you're unable to attend your regular session. If it's very, very last minute, like we're talking within an hour of when you're going to be having, and something came up, your babysitter canceled, you know, somebody got sick, you got sick, then please post in the announcements channel that your session will be canceled, and either arrange for some kind of substitution if you're able to, or else try and have a makeup night so that way students don't have a lack of mentor sessions available for them to be able to go to 2 a week. You're welcome to respond to any questions or blockers or issues that come up in that Slack discussion channel. Always be encouraging to students to work with each other to help solve problems because they're going to need to know how to work in that team environment to begin with anyway. Communicate with us if there's any individual students that fall behind or need specific help. So if somebody really is not grasping the concept of GitHub basics and they need an extra hand, and you know, you've got your mentor sessions and you've got your job, so you don't necessarily have the time to be able to devote, let us know so that way we can put them in touch with somebody that does have an extra hour or 2 to be able to cover that material with them and get them caught up. In the forms that you submit at the end of each of your mentor sessions, candid informal assessment of your students is great because it helps us determine if they're ready for the next step in their journey with us. And periodically we'll have check-in meetings just to make sure that you're getting everything that you need to be able to do your mentor position and to see if there's anything else that would be beneficial for you or any other way that we can help. All righty. So sort of a checklist for you to kind of go through. You'll want to look over learning concepts for each lesson and review content of videos just to know what the topics are that the students are covering for that particular week, and familiarize yourself with what the assignment is so that you're not blindsided when you go into your mentor session, and so that way you're prepared and can answer the questions that they fire at you. Show up for your mentor session or arrange for a sub if you can't, and then fill out the form after your mentor session is complete. Some mentors prefer to do a little bit of extra. So if you're of that vein and would prefer to, then you can preview what the class material is with the mentor treehouse credentials that we'll give you for that for intro and Rails classes. You can do the assignment yourself to work through it just to see how you'd approach it, so you have a frame of reference to compare with students and how they're approaching it. You can review the progress of the students to see if they're falling behind, if they're caught up, or kind of get a feel for where they're at in the process. You can also post something in that announcements channel and say, hey, I've got a session at 8 o'clock tonight. I'm just curious, how's everybody doing? Do you have particular questions you want me to address in my mentor session tonight? And then monitor the Slack channel, answer any questions if you'd like to, or offer additional one-on-one mentoring as needed or desired if you'd like to as well. So advice from some of the past students and mentors. The key thing is to make sure that it's a judgment-free zone. A lot of students are nervous about asking questions because they don't want to appear foolish. It's kind of sad the number of students that coming into it, they're like, I was never really encouraged to try for anything. And so they are already coming into the class with a lower self-esteem than they ought to based on what their skills indicate. So being very welcoming and open and judgment-free is going to be key. A lot of our students are non-native English-speaking students. English is not their first language. So just be patient and understand if you need them to kind of explain it in a different way, or if you need to explain something in a different way, just be patient and work through those communication issues. Allow students to have a chance to ask questions and check in. Help give any kind of ideas, tricks, shortcuts, even if it's like mnemonic devices for how to remember how something works, or anything along those lines. Sorry, excuse me a moment. It's very dry in my house right now. Supportive and motivating is the main key. Familiarize yourself with assignments in advance, so that way you're prepared to be able to answer questions that they have. You can also prepare some questions in advance to kind of get them thinking in more than just a, here's my assignment, here's what I have to do to be able to complete the assignment and get the credit for it. You know, really get them thinking about, well, what if you had this kind of a scenario? How would you approach it? You know, why would you approach it that way? Is there another way that you could do it? Use own code from other projects or real life examples. You can also prepare for challenges with students. So like some of the students are working 2 jobs to try and make ends meet, so they might have limited time. Like I'd said, some of our students wound up having to move to different countries in the process of their course. So just know that students that are coming to you, you might not have their full story about what's going on and the other struggles that they're dealing with on top of trying to learn and process new code. Assignment reviews only for people who will do reviewing, or are they for all mentors? Marwa, can you explain that question a little bit more?
Because I think I saw in the what mentors need to do, there's reviewing assignments, but I thought that there are people who specifically review assignments too.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. The way that was worded on that slide wasn't
Right.
optimal. So as students are like, if you have a mentor session on a Monday night or a Tuesday night, they might come to you with their code already completed and they just want to ask a couple questions before they submit. So that was more what we meant by assignment review during your mentor session, is they might come to you with their assignment completed and they are, you know, looking for feedback before they submit to make sure they're submitting something that they wanted to, make sure that it's working, all of that kind of a thing. There is a completely separate role that's assignment reviewers, where they go in and they take a look at the actual code, make sure everything's running, and then provide feedback to the student through their GitHub repo, or, you know, through Slack channel if there's any issues with being able to comment on their repo, to be able to give them feedback on it. Yeah, good question.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. Perfect. Okay. All right, moving along. So our main culture is focusing on diversity and helping make the tech industry a more diverse population. And the key to doing that is to be committed to discrimination-free, harassment-free environments. Nobody can learn when they're stressed out about being discriminated against or being harassed. So we really have as the fiber of our culture to be supportive, to help build strong networks, to really help raise each other up to be better coders. So it's really key to keep that in mind as you're working through your mentor sessions and as you're having interactions with students. All of the community members, whether you're a volunteer, whether you're staff, whether you're a student, whether you're a guest speaker, anything, to not engage in discriminatory or harassing behavior, sexual or otherwise. Any community member who believes that they are experiencing any kind of harassment, please report it immediately, preferably as soon as possible, so that way we can handle the issue, because nobody deserves to have any kind of struggles like that going on when they're already struggling to better themselves through education. So even though you're volunteering, please treat it like it's an official job. So use the same professionalism, courtesy, and mutual respect that you would in a company. Pretend that there's an HR office here, and if you need to report any kind of issues among students, or students approaching you inappropriately, or other mentors, please just reach out to us and make us aware of the situation so that we can handle it. As a mentor, you are representing Code the Dream while you're in mentor sessions, and when you're interacting with students and apprentices, so just keep that in mind. And we expect you to interact with our values in mind: supportive learning environment, being inclusive of differences, being pro-immigrant, pro-Black, pro-queer, pro-student, pro-human. We're all doing our best in life, and so it's important to raise each other up. Okay, so class resources and contacts. We're getting towards the end. I'm trying to get through this as quick as I can for everybody. Learn.codethedream.org obviously is the class main site class resource. So here is our mentor resources. The mentor resources page on learn.codethedream.org, your password is going to be mentor-resources to be able to access those. Slack channels, I have not had them built yet. We will be doing that as it gets closer to the class start time, but it'll be class names. So it'll be EEL announcements, EEL discussion, EEL mentors, STAR announcements, STAR discussion, STAR mentors, so on and so forth. There's also an all student conversation so that students can reach out to other students that are in different cohorts or whatever. Advanced students can be like, hey, I had a lot of fun learning whatever. Intro class students, if you need any help, I'm happy to help you out with that kind of a thing. And then of course, CTD All Mentors. So regardless of what class you've mentored in, then you have a connection with all the other mentors through the CTD All Mentors channel. Treehouse mentor access, username that you'll use is volunteer@codethedream.org and password is volunteer. For Code the Dream staff that you can reach out to if you have any issues, questions, need any help. Lori, our wonderful Lori, is Director of Programs. I'm the class coordinator. Tom Rao, who has not joined us on this call this evening, is our lead front-end instructor, senior developer. Ramiro Rodriguez is our lead back-end instructor and co-founder and CTO. And then John McGarvey is our volunteer back-end instructor.
We should add Elliot as our front-end instructor.
We need to.
As well as Jared, both
yes.
of whom are on.
Yes, absolutely. I'll have to tack those on for our next iteration of this. So impact of volunteers, obviously you can read that portion yourself, but the part that really stood out as we were getting feedback from our students, particularly with Kwesi. In my life, I studied a lot of different stuff and encountered various teachers and mentors. This course is one of the brightest in my learning experience, and I believe it's the first place due to our remarkable mentors. Thank you so much for generously sharing with us your time, skills, and knowledge and being so patient with us. And that really is the feeling that we get from every student that comes through. Just a deep gratitude that we're helping them build a better life for themselves and just do some really cool coding, because let's face it, coding's fun too. So yeah, I'll put the that slide back up at the end, and as well as send the slides out to you all so that you have access to it. Alrighty, so next steps, sign up for a mentor session time slot with the link that we provided in the chat. I'll include that also in the follow-up email after this meeting, so that way you have access to it there. Once we've got those Slack channels created and we invite you, then just accept that and get on board for Slack for your channels. You can check out the class website, and we'll be publishing those a little bit closer to the class date as well, but feel free to take a look at the intro and Rails ones that we already have up from previous classes. Feel free to look at those mentor resources and bear with us. We're experimenting, learning, and technology is changing every day. And so we're doing our best to stay current and change with it. And we're open to feedback. So please share your feedback with us if there's anything that we can do to better support you or to answer any questions and whatnot. All right, so let me jump it back to the slide here so that y'all have access to that. But all right, the floor is open. Fire any questions at us. If there's anything that you need, feel free to put it in chat or unmute and share. And thank you for being talked at for the past hour and a half. I'm sorry that I talk as much as I do, but I hope I got you the information that you needed.
And again, I think you should also feel free to ask questions to experienced mentors on this call, like Elliot, Jared, Linda's on, I see Ray is on. There's a few people who have mentored in the past. So if you'd like to know just what's it like or stuff like that, I'm sure they're all friendly folks.
Yes, they are. It's just late.
I actually have a quick question here.
Yeah.
It's because I did my schedule. I scheduled myself for Tuesday at noon, but it might change my schedule because I'm applying for a job that I might have it. So I guess I can change my schedule all the time, right? I mean, in one week in advance or something like that.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Maura, did you happen to put a note like off to the right of your name in that form? Because I can
Yeah.
always make a notation on the weekly schedule that I put out that, that's what it is for this week, but there may be changes in the future weeks. So that way students are just aware that even though it's, Thursday at noon, it might wind up being, Wednesday at 5 or something the next week.
Exactly. Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect. Thank
Just,
you.
I have a question. Because I'm used to like one-on-one tutoring, I wonder like how can collaboration happen with a small group during sessions between students when it's virtual? Is it more like using breakout rooms? Like if someone's ahead, for example, and someone's behind, and I was like, okay, then since you're ahead, can you help them with this question? So that learning can be simultaneous, I don't know how to say the word. Is it more using like breakout rooms, or how does that happen?
Yeah, you can do it either way. You can either do breakout rooms or the way that I had handled it, and Jared or Elliot or Linda or Ray can hop into the way I had handled it was everybody was kind of unmuted, and so it would be like, hey, all right, so this person's sharing their screen. Let's talk about what we see on their screen. And does anybody have any suggestions? So they did the coding, but they would have other students saying, oh, you know what? I remember this from the video. Maybe try it this way and see if that works to kind of work through it. But if anybody else wants to jump in with information as well.
No, I think that's a good, a lot of times, yeah, if somebody is doing well, like encourage them to help like talk about what they did, because if somebody else like figured it out, they'll, I think what you'll find as well in that same vein is that a lot of times they will have similar problems. So when somebody's like, man, I'm stuck on this, if somebody else in the session is very likely to be like, oh, I was stuck on that too. And then I was like, I forgot to, I don't know, increment my for loop, or yeah, I totally forgot to print it out to the screen or something, right? And so a lot of times they'll be able to answer them. That doesn't always happen. And sometimes, if you're in a session, you do end up sort of working through, a subset of problems that the students have, and you may have to try and either follow up or just try and gauge how many people have a similar problem or had similar challenges, right? And that happens quite frequently too, where it's like multiple people had something that was a very similar issue with the lesson, or that they were stuck on something, and so sort of walking them through it helps out multiple students at the same time.
Yeah, thank you. How do you manage with that, like that students wouldn't give each other answers, or like where does collaboration end? Like it's hard to put limits with that, because yeah.
I would say honestly, I don't worry about that, because it usually isn't as much. Like I'm usually trying to encourage more collaboration from them versus less. Like it's usually on the side of they're nervous, they're reserved, they're not collaborating with each other as much as I even want, and so I very rarely end up like having to be like, okay, let's not give them the entire answer or something, like let's let them work through something a little bit. Usually I'm trying to encourage people to speak up about the problems that they had, because a lot of them, and I mean, if you've developed, until you get comfortable with the notion when you're doing software development that you just don't know how stuff works and you're going to run into things and you have to ask about it. A lot of the students aren't comfortable with that idea yet. So they think that when they don't know how to solve a problem, or they're stuck on something, like it's on them, like, oh, I can't figure this out. And they're not thinking like, oh, this is just a common thing. It happens every day in software development. So like encouraging them to be open about that and just talk about it is a big part of the mentoring process. Be like, all right, just know, like, what are your problems? Like, don't worry if you feel like it was a silly problem that you had, like I couldn't get my command prompt to open or something. Like you'll have those types of things.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a quick question along those lines, just organizing the mentor session. Do you is there the ability for us to make like our own little like Slack channel for us? So I find it easier to like collaborate and share like code examples and stuff, like when you can shoot it into a Slack versus the Zoom Slack or the Zoom chat channel.
Yes. Yeah. So depending on the group that you're wanting to share it with, oftentimes after my mentor sessions, I might have like referenced, oh yeah, this is a really great tutorial that explains this a little bit better. You can either just sort of tag your students in the announcements channel and say, here's what I was talking about tonight, and have the link there. Or you can also share it in discussions as well. So you can do it in announcements or discussions to be able to get that information out to them. And then just using, at in their name to be able to tag them if you want those students individually to be aware, hey, here's what we were talking about. You can send it through that way.
Is it at all possible to make like a Slack channel for like our own mentor like session? Like, if you're in Sean's mentor session, join Sean's mentor Slack channel, so that
that's a good
just
question.
for like more like active sharing during the session and not like blasting it to everyone.
Yeah, I think we should be able to do that. Yeah. And then it's a little easier to go back to rather than, oh, the chat closed because we ended the session
and if they
and I
end
don't
up
remember.
not coming back to my session, they can leave the Slack channel and they can join someone else, whatever. But
yeah,
that's totally fine. I think we really want to encourage anything like that. We definitely, like Jared said, we have, it just depends on the class. Like sometimes the classes seem to really gel, and they, like one class, they went out and created their own Discord channel and did everything, our Discord server, and had 1 million channels, and we're doing had a channel for every lesson, and we're just doing so much activity, like all completely self-organized. And that was awesome. And then other times, that hasn't happened at all. So we really want to encourage that collaboration. We've actually thought about, could we do something where we like organize the students into small groups, where those are the groups that they're checking in with throughout the duration of the class. And, maybe we'll try that. Maybe we'll come up with something else. But yes, anything like that just encourages more collaboration, we love.
Do we usually record these sessions or not? These are just like on the fly. We don't need to like hit the record button on these and share them.
Yeah.
No, you don't need to record them. Yeah.
And I'll say one reason we actually used to do all of our mentor sessions over Slack. The reason that we switched was a very specific reason, actually, and that was that we had a deaf student at one point, and deaf folks cannot have access to interpretation, sign language interpretation, as long as there is a phone number associated with the call, with the link. And with Slack, there's no phone number associated. And Google Meet actually has some good, captioning stuff and has phone numbers also, but Google Meet does not have good annotation. So we just sort of went all in with Zoom because it really is very accessible in that way. But if that's not a barrier, you can, feel free to use other ways. It just usually keeps it simpler for the students if it's sort of like this is your Zoom link. So it doesn't get too confusing for everybody. But yeah, I think anything else like that, if you want to refer to a separate Slack channel, we are happy to set that up for you, or, anything else like that, we would, love to encourage that.
More questions. Sorry, I tend to have a lot of questions. Is the two questions. First, like the next step after this, before the class starts, is there another like group meeting, or are we just going to be communicating via Slack for the most part?
Probably via Slack for the most part. If a few of you would feel more comfortable having another meeting to be able to go over any questions you've thought of, I'm happy to do that. Just send me an email with some nights and times that might work for you. Please include your time zone, because we do have folks kind of everywhere, East Coast, West Coast. And I've had a couple of folks that have missed meetings because they're like, oh, shoot, I forgot you're on East Coast time. So just include that. And I can always set something up and we can get back together again. That's perfectly fine. Mm-hmm.
But we also will have a few mentor check-ins, like a couple weeks in. Mm-hmm. We'll have another meeting like this where we're checking with everybody, and then monthly we'll do check-ins, and we can do it more frequently if you want. It's just there tends to be a lot going on.
Do you typically like hop into the sessions and like see how things are going and that kind of stuff?
The mentor sessions occasionally. Yeah, sometimes we don't have a whole lot of bandwidth necessarily, but yeah, occasionally. I'm not a developer myself, but I have taken a couple of our classes. So I used to jump into sessions all the time then when I was trying to learn something. But that was more for learning purposes, not for anything else. But it's something that we do think about sometimes because, yeah, but it sort of just depends on our bandwidth. Bye, Mauro. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Right.
I have a quick question on the Google Sheet where we're signing up for mentor session schedules. Is it, you're just asking for like availability, or are you going to be like, do you want like an exact like hour that we want our session to be?
Yeah, the exact day and time that you'd prefer your session to be. And you don't have to fill this out tonight. Obviously, class doesn't start until August 11th or August 25th, depending on which class you're in. So if you need to, take a couple days and be like, all right, let me see what my schedule is going to be like, from August 11th until December, as far as what night of the week would be best for you, then that's perfectly fine. Yeah, that does not need to be filled out tonight.
If we truly like have no like hard commitments and are very free with our schedule, would you rather pick a time, or do you want me to just go ahead and select a random time?
Select whatever time you'd prefer, but put in the notes section all the way to the right that you've got flexibility. So that way, if we do wind up with 2 mentors at the same slot, then the person who says I'm flexible, then I can be like, hey, can you actually, move it an hour later or an hour earlier?
Yeah, and or even put like, evenings, East Coast time or something like that, which it's fine to be flexible, but like it does happen sometimes where we'll be really short on like, Pacific times, for example. And if you're willing to do a 9 p.m. East Coast slot, that's great. But just saying any time is sometimes a little too
vague.
flexible.
Yeah, for sure. I just didn't know if maybe you had like, if you had some slots that you just really didn't have, that you needed filled, and just because I really could do mostly any time. I noticed most of these are evening. Is there a need for morning stuff or no?
Not a ton.
Not as much. We did have somebody last time who was like, I really, really need a morning Pacific Coast time.
Yeah.
And then we were able to set that up. But that is less common.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm personally just more productive in the morning, so like that's my go-to time. But yeah, that's fine either way. Whatever works.
Well, what about a morning on a weekend? Would you be open to that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I think that might be really good, like a Saturday or Sunday. And then especially if it was maybe mid like 12-ish, which is not really morning for us. I see you're in Florida, right?
Yeah.
So it's not really morning for us, but that would be morning on the West Coast.
For sure.
Well, it sounds like people are having to go, so let's maybe just sort of officially end. And if anybody wants to stay on a little bit longer, we can hang around. And Sean, I am also a person that always has a lot of questions, so we will be here to answer every single one. But if other folks do have to go, I think feel free to hop off, and we're so grateful and excited to have you all on board.
Okay, well, I have 2 more questions.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
I mean, they're more personal, like to my situation. I also signed up that I was interested in doing assignment review. Is that a separate session, or is that just going to be tacked on?
It's not, well, go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, assignment review isn't a session, so you don't have to meet one-on-one. All the feedback's just given to them as notating their code or commenting on their repo. Yeah. So you can definitely do that as well if you'd like to. And I think you said you had probably already put it in your form. I'm going on the assumption that anybody that's a mentor would prefer not to assignment review, but I'll make a notation, Sean, that you'd like to assignment review for your class as well, so that way I'll include you in that list.
What can I say? I worked in a high school for 10 years, so it's very familiar for me.
I assume you sent you a big red pen, right?
Yeah, right.
No? Oh.
Yeah, I'll take it. I love red
Lots
pen.
of ink, right? Yeah.
Lots of ink. Oh yeah.
I'm gonna be very. I'm gonna love that annotate feature. That's for sure. What was the other question I had? I thought, the email just said you signed up, or your interest is in the intro session, but I also wanted to do the React session if needed. So is that just because the email only had one thing in it, or do you also know I have interest in both and want that?
Yeah, I knew that you had interest in both. We had more students coming out for the intro class than we did for the React class.
Okay.
So we had a greater need in the intro. So that was why I had placed you there. But if we have anybody that, backs out of React and you want to help out on that as well, then just
Yeah,
let
for
me
sure.
know.
It wasn't
And,
like one or the other. Like I'm happy to do both again. I mean,
okay.
I'm really in the job hunt right now, so like I have so much free time. It's just basically job applications and Code Academy courses.
Yeah. All right, that's great.
I think that's it for me.
Okay. Go ahead and stop sharing. And record.